that believes in when we look back in time and all, we see that during the time that these scriptures were being written, it was a male chauvinistic time, all right, and a misunderstanding, because when you go back, you see many people that actually are females that actually operated as not only pastors but as apostles, and that's another teaching that I would be glad to share on at another time, but that's not in the topic that we're discussing today. But I do say that I've got plenty of scriptural reference that would show that even such people, and especially in the New Testament, because I want to make it real for today, Phoebe herself was an apostle, whether you want to recognize that or not. Phoebe. Go back and study, and you'll see in her call and in her title, and it was changed in the King James, or placed in the King James. That's the sad thing about Scripture many times. When we go from the original text, we can put a slant on it that can hide something. But when the shadows are taken away, and you go back to the root of the word, you'll find that the same word that is used for Paul, the Apostle Paul, is the same exact word that was used for Phoebe. And that's another teaching and something else that we can discuss at another time. So we want to get back on track, because we're discussing the preparation of Abram. Abram has answered the call. We saw that he in the last few weeks of study, we've discussed the fact that he not only left his family, meaning his father's house, and leaving all of them, he began to do his travels. We saw the places that he went to. He went from the heap, and he went to the house of God, and then from there he's now traveling to a place called Egypt. And in the last few teachings we shared something about Egypt. Can anyone remember what we talked about Egypt? What is Egypt a type of? Speak out loud. Sin. Okay. What else?
Bondage.
Speak up.
Bondage.
Bondage. Okay. Sin, bondage. What else?
World. System of the world.
System of the world. Very good. Anyone else? Okay.
Going down.
Going down. There you go. Remember, we talked about last week, we were talking about the last thing that Abram was told. He was told to go south.
No wonder
to
why
Egypt.
God says go up to Jerusalem.
Up to Jerusalem, down south. Okay? So, get it? All right. So, and speaking of the south right now, we have a storm that's running in the Carolinas, and then running all the way up the coast. You clear up into Maine. Tropical storm. Hopefully it's not a hurricane. The last I heard it was a tropical storm. But anyway, the key issue here is that we see that Abram's now being sent to a place that can, and we all know by hindsight, that actually represents to the children of God and to the church at large, being in bondage, being in sin. And the reason that they're in sin is because of the rebellion that caused them to be placed in bondage. Many times in our lives, this is one of the problems that we have. How we come to a recognition of who God is and whose we are. In that, we recognize that when we're disobedient to God, we actually put ourselves in bondage, or we actually shackle ourselves to sin. And because of that, we find ourselves on the outside parameters of God's grace. And thereby we're sitting there saying, what's going on? The rain is hitting me, yet I have an umbrella. And this is what we see so many times in the Christian believer's life. They think, they deal with the issue of, talking about once saved, always saved. Well, you can walk out from that umbrella anytime you want, or you can leave your umbrella behind anytime that you so choose. All right? But it's up to you. Now, back to this fella Abram, because as Abram is leaving from Bethel and he's heading down south, and as he heads south, he's coming to this place, Egypt. we shared the last time that we discussed this. We shared that he put himself in agreement with his wife, or caused his wife to come into agreement to do something. Do you remember what that was? What was that?
His sister.
In what?
So the people will kill him.
All right. And so what did he say, and what did he do?
He said, hey baby, be my sister because you people gonna kill me because you're fine.
Okay. All right. There you go. So the key issue, he tells his wife to say, I'm your sister. Okay. And then by doing that, here is a hiding. Okay. And this is what we see in many of us when we first answer the call. You know, we begin to try to hide. Okay. We're trying to hide, and the reason that we're trying to hide is because of what we're coming from. It was a way of life. Is that not right? I mean, more so than not, those that are called have gone through something in their life already. Because God uses everything that happens in our life for a purpose. Don't think that there's anything that's happened in your life that took God by surprise. Guess what? He knew it was going to happen even before you were created. Because He had a purpose for you, and in the purpose, He had preparation. He prepared things for you that you would go through, you would come up against, and you would have to make decisions. We talked earlier in the last teachings talking about quality decisions. You know, we make decisions every day. But Abram had to make a quality decision before he left his family and began to sojourn or follow God. Were you going to say something, Brother Henry?
You know, when you said, because I wanted to say something earlier, but like I said, I was standing on this, and then you said something I want to ask about. You know, you said they put their own self in position. I was talking with a friend, and we were talking about the presidents and different people in office. I said, well, you know, God put them there. God ain't put that there. I said, well, can't nobody else get there. This guy ain't right, he ain't this. I said, well, we ain't right, we messing up, we doing things. So this is me. I put, to me, now it might be wrong, I put everything on God.
Amen.
This is me now.
This is true.
If you're bad and you're in office, then God put me.
That's right.
If you're good and you're in office, God put me. This
Absolutely.
is me now. And they say,
that the scripture says that He lifts up and He brings down kings. So He puts them in position. And when people say, and I'm glad you said that, because again, it does kind of tie into what we're talking about here. Because people talk about, you know, even our president today, you know, the one, you know, Bush, that's in office right now. They talk about him like he has a tail. Well, in reality, he has a destiny to fulfill in that office because God placed him there. And the next man or woman or whatever, and men and women, or however that plays out, again, God is the one that's in control of that. And I say man, woman, because in reality, let's stop and think about it. If John McCain end up president and then he dies, guess who's the new president? The woman. Okay?
Well, they got a woman in office already.
Not in the presidency.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's running the presidency.
Yeah.